Did you know that Fruitland was once called Disharoon's Crossroads? Did you know that President Ronald Reagan presented a California redwood to the state of Delaware when he was the governor of California? All of this information can be found on just 2 of the hundreds of historical markers found here on Delmarva.
Yeah, think about it. That's a wealth of information that we want to dig into here on DelmarvaLife, so we will every Monday.
Marker Monday is our way to bring history alive, and we do all the traveling. All you have to do is sit back and learn.
And for today's Monday Marker, we didn't travel very far from Historical Studio D, just down the road to downtown Salisbury, and that's where you'll find St. Peter's Episcopal Church. Now, this church was first built 255 years ago, but as you're about to find out, it had to be rebuilt 2 more times, proving that it's not the bricks and boards that make a church strong, it's the people.
And here he is with a crown on his head. He's wearing the priestly garb.
Every window in St. Peter's Church tells a 2,000-year-old story. Mary's visit by the angel Gabriel, the birth of Christ, the Last Supper, the crucifixion. The church has a story as well.
We have been worshiping here since 1768.
That spans more than a quarter of a millennium.
250 years of being here right at the top of the hill in downtown Salisbury.
Father David Michaud has been here for 10 of those years.
I am just grateful and honored to be part of such a loving congregation in such a beautiful sacred space. I think this, maybe I'm biased, I think this is one of the most beautiful sacred spaces in Salisbury.
First established as the Church of England for the colony of Maryland, its tall steeple with a gold cross guided travelers along the river into town.
They knew they were getting close to Salisbury when they were traveling there because they could see St. Peter's spire and cross there. So it was definitely a fixture of the town since the beginning.
That was until 1860, when fire destroyed much of downtown Salisbury, including St. Peter's.
So we rebuilt it in 1865, a second church, more of a Romanesque church, brick, and on the same site.
The new church included a bell tower used to call people to prayer. On October 17, 1886, that call to prayer turned into a call for help.
They were calling people to prayer with the bell, and it was just a regular bell sound, and then it's got really fast because it was the alarm bell for the fire.
History repeated itself.
And so the fire started down in the river area, and it went right up downtown, and it took this church and everything else. In fact, the only thing that the fire companies, and they came from all over the place, not just Salisbury, but Delmarva, everywhere, and they came and they just surrounded the courthouse, because the courthouse had been around 1879, and that was the only building they could save.
This picture shows the bell that once hung high in the tower, fallen in a pile of rubble and ash. But the church didn't take long to rise from those ashes.
One thing I think about this congregation, about this church, is its resilience, is the fact that, they had a colonial church, it burns down, they build another one, and they build one even more grander. And then the second church burns down, and what do? Within a year, they have built this church here.
And on Christmas Day, 1887, the congregation celebrated the first worship in the building that stands on the hill today.
They still had in the rose window in the back of the church, still had burlap on it. They hadn't put any, and they only had the second floor done, but they were ready to worship.
Ready and resilient, a resiliency that remains within today's congregation.
And then I reminded the congregation of that when we went through the pandemic, that this is who we are. We are a resilient congregation. We have been through 2 fires. We can get through a pandemic. And so I know that they were probably devastated, but yet they did not give up hope. This has been a very hopeful church.
Designed by famous Philadelphia architect Charles Burns, St. Peter's is considered Italian Romanesque.
You can see this style more, I think, in in mid to southern Italy, and people have come and said this is very familiar to that. So it's got that. The bricks are pretty amazing too. The way they've laid them out is very cutting edge at the time, back in the late 19th century.
Even the 1,500-pound bell that once tolled above the streets of downtown Salisbury rings out again, but it took 114 years. Following the second fire, before a bell tower was built, the bell was moved to the only building spared by the Great Fire, the courthouse. But in 1997, St. Peter's asked for the bell back.
And of course, we had to pay for transporting it over there. And they said, yes, but we have been ringing the hours of the day in downtown Salisbury with your bell since the late 19th century. If you'll continue doing that, we'll certainly help you get that bell back.
Today, every hour, on the hour, the bell atop the church on the hill rings.
And of course, we also ring for a call to worship as well. So it's a very special history, and include not only of the parish, but also of the town as well.
It's not hard to get lost discovering every intricate detail within the walls of this sanctuary. The 3-panel triptych above the altar, the 4 archangels guarding the western wall, the rose window.
He's off the cross. You've got John, and
it's also not hard to find beauty around every corner. But Father Michaud knows the church's founding fathers would be most proud of those who call this church home.
I think they'd be like, wow, every church seems to get better and more and more beautiful. But I also think that they would see a real loving congregation, because church is about the people. But when you've got great loving people that are in a sacred space, it's just, you can feel the presence of God so much.
A presence and power that's always been here and always will be. St. Peter's Episcopal Church holds 3 Sunday morning services and morning and evening prayers throughout the week. Most of the services and all of the prayers are live streamed. And next week's Marker Monday takes us to one of the newest historical markers in Delaware, Jason Beach at Trap Pond State Park.
Looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, I am too.
That was a great one too.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank
you. Thank you. Well, a collaborative culinary and professional workspace that promotes innovation and flexibility. That's what you'll find at the newly renovated Packing House in Cambridge. They've managed to repurpose many of the original architectural components, and Katie Cirilli stopped by to get a tour.
DelmarvaLife will be right back.